Well, it ain't a ghost tale, I don't reckon, but it was a strange happening indeed. Now, one of our neighbors towards the head of the holler had their granny pass away. Now, that wasn't all that unusual, but what the problem was, it was dead in the middle of winter. We'd just gotten a big old snowstorm. And there's a sickness going around, I reckon. It got everybody in our house down, and I reckon that's what took her on home to glory. But she passed away in the bed, and of course they wanted to have a proper burial for her. She was a righteous woman, and she very much loved by her children and grandchildren, so they wanted to do right by her. But with the middle of winter, what happens is the ground gets so cold you can't cut into it with a shovel or nothing else. And this was one of them bad snows that hit us, and so they couldn't get to no funeral homes or none of that, which we had an old cemetery up there in the holler anyway. Everybody buried up on the side of the mountain. That's where they all took to meet to Jesus. So they couldn't get a coffin or nothing up there. So what they had to do was they put her body down and laid it on an old door. And it was the strangest sight you ever seen. Now all the women from the holler came down and helped wash her body and get her cleaned up, and they dressed her in her Sunday best. Got her looking pretty as she could be, and laid her on they put a sheet over that door and laid her on there, and the strangest sight to see, they tied an old rope around her hips and to tie her on, keep her on that steady on that board, and then they tied her feet together, and they even put a little rope around her neck. I reckon it was keep her hold her mouth shut so it didn't open up. And so there she was, all strapped down, and then they put a sheet over her and wrapped her up, and I reckon they put another blanket and put some rope around it, and where it's too cold to bury her, they had to take her out and put her out in the barn. It was the darndest thing I ever did see. So they carried her out and had to keep her in, because you couldn't leave a body like that in the house. It was too cold to bury her. What did you do? They wouldn't have no choice. They did not have a choice at all. They had to put her out there, and of course, they kept a check on her, because the worst fear was that some varmint would get in and do some damage. And Lord, that'd have been tore all to pieces if that happened. But I mean, it was one of the colder winters we had, so she stayed out there a pretty good while, I reckon. Probably a month or so. And finally, when the weather broke, they got her coffin and had her a proper burial. But it was sad times, hard times. They didn't know what to do. We didn't know what to do. You just did what you could do to get by. And I've seen other times when people pass away that they had put coin over their eyes. And there's always a fear that somebody'd come along and steal the money. That's a low down, dirty outlaw that would do that, but it happened. Heard tell of it a few times. if they ever caught the lowlife that did it, he'd live to regret it, I promise you that. But yeah, it was hard times out there, just to think that you can't even get a proper burial up in the mountains. So, I tell you what, we lived through a lot. We sure did. I mean, you just did what you had to do back then, but that don't make it the best way you can do.